Hello everyone, and welcome back to An Art Life Worth Living. In today's video, I'm going to be teaching you guys how I learned to draw anything like a pro. But first, let's sketch. Now, it is important to use basic shapes because this allows you to get an overall feel for your art piece. Sketching is going to be where you try new ideas and play around until you get something that you like. You don't want to be afraid of making mistakes, as it is a part of the learning curve. And honestly, I tried about 4 different ideas before coming up with this one. And now that we have the sketch done, we are going to transfer using the graphite technique. This is important because when you are doing your art piece, and if you are like me who don't really like to transfer, and then you mess up on your final piece, now you have to redraw the entire thing. So transferring it allows you to retransfer in case you make a mistake. It's important to take breaks and hydrate because this allows you to come back and look at your art piece before you go into that final stage. This allows you to pick out any mistakes that you see, and then you can continue on to the next part, which is coloring. Now, when it comes to coloring, it's best to plan your color scheme. Now, I don't always plan my color scheme, but I try to when it's going to be a big or important art piece like this one. In this piece, I only chose 6 colors, and this allows my piece to look very cohesive. The color scheme that I chose is based around the theme of my art piece, and the theme of my art piece is the 80s. I have no idea why the 80s came to mind, but I wanted to create a piece that was inspired by that. When it comes to coloring, you want to make sure that you take breaks in between coloring. Now, it's easier for someone like me who does watercolors because you have to let your layers dry in between. But this is also a bonus because when I'm looking at the piece, I can make sure that I'm placing my colors where I think they would fit best. And in case you guys are using watercolors or any other mediums, I layer a lot with watercolor, so it allows me to really build up my color, but I also use markers and color pencils, and when I'm using those, it's much easier to put pigment down on the paper. So make sure you always work light to dark if you're using any of these mediums. And that is kind of all I have for the coloring stage. Just take your time and go slow. So I will meet you guys back in the next part. And lastly, you're going to add your final details. Now, in this piece particularly, I did line last just because I'm using watercolors, and I know that some liners tend to smudge, and since I'm not using what I typically use to line, I wanted to be safe. But talking about what you use to line, I like to use a brush pen or a dip pen, and it's because I really like the look of my sketches. And I find that if I use a very precise like 0.5 or 0.1 liner, it makes my art look very stiff. So I like to use the brush or dip pen because it gives expression to my artwork. And when it comes to the line work, this is probably where you're going to spend most of your time, if not the coloring stage. And it's because you want your lines to look very precise and very clean. But in that sense, I always like to say, embrace the mistakes in your art. There are quite a bit of mistakes in here, but only you as the artist knows which mistakes, so don't beat yourself up about them. And that's it. You're going to sign your work and you can enjoy some B-roll. Subscribe and hit that notification bell for more content from me. Bye!